Hey fellow babies, welcome back to the Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Hope you are watching real time on as a Patreon patron, and thank you for your patronage. If you're watching on YouTube, you're getting it late, and we understand if you can't afford it or choose not to subscribe on Patreon. But at a minimum, please link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account and resubscribe every month. The instructions are in the description. It's really easy to do. Our first question this week from Twitter at Whitewater Moose. With GameStop's financial woes, do you think it will stop taking old consoles for trade-in credit? If its long-term prospects aren't good, buying old used consoles doesn't seem all that smart. Could that impact next-gen adoption in 2020? No, I think that supply and demand can be affected by price. So I don't know what GameStop pays for a used console, but let's say they sell a used console for $150 and they take it in trade for $75. If they find that they're getting too many old consoles at $75, they'll lower the price to $60 and they'll get fewer of them. But if they're still getting too many, they'll lower the price they're willing to pay to $50 or $40 or $30. They can manage this, and obviously if they find they have too many consoles, and they only pay $60, they can sell them for $120. If they pay $50, they can sell them for $100. So they'll manage the ebb and flow of supply and demand by discounting the price. The only time I've ever seen them stop taking hardware in trade was when Guitar Hero and Rock Band were a big deal. And they were getting so much of that hardware traded back in, they stopped taking it because they just couldn't move it at all. But honestly, if they mark used consoles down to $50, they'll sell as many as they want. Keep in mind that the PlayStation 3 came out in 2006, and the PlayStation 2 wasn't discontinued until like 2009 or 10. So people were still buying PS2s at $99 in 2009 or 10, and if GameStop could take one in trade and sell it for $75, they were able to sell it. So there's going to be demand for Xbox Ones and PS4s at $100 for a long time. And there's a huge library of content. And because of digital downloads, there's a gigantic library. You can get, $10 games everywhere on digital downloads. So, and obviously used at GameStop. So no, I don't think there's any risk that they stop taking consoles in trade for a long time. And again, it depends on the next gen console price. If they're $600, then they're going to be, very few sold. And so there'll be fewer traded in. If they're $300, there'll be a lot traded in. Then your question makes much more sense. Our next question from Patreon from Ali Shirazi. Hey Pachter, love the show. Hey Shirazi, thank you. I personally am not interested in game streaming services like Google Stadia or Microsoft xCloud, but are ISP data cap issues an obstacle for their success? When you have to spend extra to get uncapped bandwidth, isn't there potential to pay much more than just buying a console? I don't know much about data caps, and my understanding is that most services in the US are uncapped and that most services elsewhere are capped. Yeah, the thing I don't know, and I haven't done any research into this, is what the streaming rate is on these streaming games, because remember that you're not actually streaming anything more than a video. So even though you feel like you're interacting with it, all the processing is being done in the cloud and all you're getting is the video feed, even though you're interacting with it. And I mean, think about it like watching Netflix and hitting the pause button, right? I mean, it doesn't work instantly, but it does pause. So it's the same thing. And that's about, it depends on the frame rate, but it's about between 1 and 6 gigabytes an hour. If it's 6, which is super high definition, then sure, you'll hit your bandwidth cap.
4K?
Well, if it's 4K, I don't know. Well, it's Google. If it's 4K, you'll hit your bandwidth cap in a few hours. If it's, if they're able to data compress and get it down to a gig, you're probably not going to hit your bandwidth cap. But I don't know the answer. So yes, if in fact it causes people to hit their caps, then the services won't be popular. And I mean, it's a good question. And I think that the last part of your question is the right question. isn't there potential to pay much more than just buying a console? Google Stadia, I think the Founders Edition is like $180 to get started. And as I said in just the last question, you can buy a used Xbox One for $150. So why do I need Google Stadia? Why don't I just buy an Xbox One? I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me. And I think that that's why they have to give the services away. The potential wouldn't be that much more if it's $50. But again, I don't know if bandwidth caps are a good idea. I look at the cell phone model, and we used to pay by the minute, and they got rid of that because consumers frickin' hated it. And so if there's bandwidth caps, somebody's going to say, okay, Comcast, bandwidth cap, we're not using you anymore. We're going to go to AT&T. Our next question from SIFTD from Derek D111. Do you think PlayStation VR 2 will be a big step up in power, or will it simply remove the wires like with Oculus Quest, requiring more power for new games that alienate a lot of customers who bought the original, and it's really hard to make a powerful wireless headset that's affordable? I think it is a virtual certainty that it will remove the wires. I think they have to. I think that's the biggest impediment to using VR, is that if you're tethered, it's just not fun. You can't move around, you can't sit comfortably. I'm limited. I have to sit closer to my TV than my couch, so I have to pull a chair out, and it just bothers me. I think wireless is absolutely necessary, and I think price is the second consideration. So you want cheap wireless. Cheap wireless is better than expensive wired or cheap wired. Wireless will increase adoption 5x, and price is less of a consideration. But if they do it, wireless is $1,000 and wired is $100, well, obviously they'll sell more wired. I just think wired's not good, and I think that they kind of know that, and I think that they will get rid of it. Again, I don't understand price of wireless headsets. You guys are all too smart for me. Our last question this week from YouTube from Dady. With how lucrative the games business has become, do you see Hollywood trying to move into the industry? The best games cost tens of millions to create, while tentpole films often cost 100, 200 million to produce and then flop. Disney has exited the games business and opted for licensing deals instead. Is that the right approach? Can traditional entertainment companies make more money in the games business? Will they get a better ROI producing games themselves? All right, all of that, no, and no. Media companies suck at making games. And there is one exception to that, and one only, and that is Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers had a studio head, Kevin Tsujihara, who's not there anymore after the AT&T acquisition. That guy was visionary, and was visionary about making great games. And he had a couple of different CEOs, but the current one now, David Haddad, is great. And they made really astute developer acquisitions. So they bought NetherRealm, who makes Mortal Kombat, and they bought TT, Traveler's Tales, who made, I think, all the Lego games, and all of them. And they bought Rocksteady, who made the couple of Batman games. So David Haddad is a great CEO. He has great developers. He had a great boss in Kevin Tsujihara. So now with Warner Brothers owned by AT&T, maybe even they're getting out of the business. They have been rumored to be for sale. I don't know. But I gotta say, they're the only ones who have done it right. Disney made a really good game in Disney Infinity, but didn't make money because Disney doesn't know how to make money. They don't know how to invest properly. And they've abandoned the games business. They bought Fox. They're selling Fox Next. I don't even know what Fox Next makes. Is it mostly mobile? I don't even know.
It was some VR stuff.
Yeah, but mostly mobile. Yeah. But they're getting out of it again. Sony obviously is a media company and makes games, but Universal's been kind of floundering and trying for years, and they're not particularly good at it. Making games isn't like making movies. I mean, the only thing that you're comparing is the price. They're not the same people. It's a completely different skill set. So you don't get Brad Pitt to be in your game. I mean, it doesn't matter if Brad Pitt's in your game. In fact, the Batman game, Mark Hamill was the Joker, and Uncharted, Nolan North was Nathan Drake. And, those are the great things. And I like Mark Hamill, but it's not like he has this long and storied career making 100 movies. He's Star Wars and nothing else. So no, it's not like you need the biggest star to be in your game. And the people who make the games are not like cinematographers and directors. I'd say the closest to Hollywood for video games is Rockstar. Like they make the most cinematic of all the games, and yet like the Housers have never made a movie. I think they would love to, but they've never done it. Different skill set. And so I don't think it's a natural conclusion that because, Hollywood can make a Marvel Endgame, that they can make a movie. Make a game. I don't think that they know how to make a game. So no, I think that the media companies are struggling just to make TV shows, and figuring out how to actually make games is hard, and they're not good at it. And that's why the guys who are good at it keep doing it and keep thriving. So nope, I don't think they get a better ROI producing it themselves. And I'd say Disney is not getting back in the games business anytime soon. Hope you enjoyed this week's Pachter Factor. We're going to take a break and come back next week. If you are a Patreon patron, thank you for your patronage. If you're watching on YouTube, please link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. If you are doing neither of those two things, please follow me at Michael Pachter on Twitter. Please follow Shane at Dinfire, and please follow SIFTD at SIFTD Games. See you next week.